From Studio C in the 511 Studios in the Brewery District, located in downtown Columbus, Ohio, this is Note to Future Me. I'm Brett Johnson, owner of Circle270Media Podcast Consultants. Note to Future Me is dedicated to interviewing businesses and organizations who have implemented podcasting into their marketing strategy. In this episode, I talk with Jason Fleagle and Adam Bankhurst, co-hosts of Grow Like a Pro podcast from Jenesis Marketing Group. At the time of the recording, the podcast is just under a year old. Their podcast is a show all about learning how to achieve your goals and dreams as a business owner. They spotlight growth tips and success stories from entrepreneurs from all walks of life as they teach you how to, as they say, grow like a pro. I know one of the great takeaways you'll get from the podcast is how the two share duties as co-hosts. Ideally, co-hosts should divide the work in half, and these two talk about how they do just that. If your business is using podcasting as a marketing or branding tool, I would love to showcase your podcast. Go to notetofutureme.com and scroll down to my booking calendar. You can find all this information in the show notes as well. I'll have a full transcript on the podcast website and Circle270Media.com. And as always, thanks for taking notes with me. Start off and talk about, we're going to balance this podcast with business and nonprofit. And I'm a true believer that businesses need to give back to the community. And I want to give you guys an opportunity to talk about nonprofits that you work with, whether it's time, treasure, talent. Let's talk about those. Which one do you work with? Or maybe it's a multitude of them.
Yeah. Adam, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, I worked at the Basement Doctor for about 8 years, and I was the IT manager. And the Basement Doctor and Ron Greenbaum himself is very into working with nonprofits and charitable organizations. And we've worked with, the Ronald McDonald House, and we've worked with Autism Speaks, and we've worked with the, all these other groups that really do a lot of good in the community. And so I started doing that. And in addition, personally, I am big into gaming and technology. And there's a charity called Extra Life that is basically like a gaming marathon. So instead of running for 24 hours, you're gaming for 24 hours.
Okay.
And so I started a movement in Columbus back in 2011, and we're raising money for Nationwide Children's Hospital. So we work with Ohio State and Buckeye-thon, their big dance marathon. And we've raised, over, I think, about $250,000 over the past maybe 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Just helping kids and playing games is kind of what we say. And recently we've gotten involved in Pelotonia, the big bike ride. And for the last 2 years, I've done 100 miles. And we've worked on the board with Kelly and Kelly and Maria Durant. And we are really, really passionate about doing that stuff because it's just so important, and there's so many good causes, and it's nice to just get out there and meet people and see people doing amazing stuff in the community. So it's a big passion of mine and of the company's.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, and for me, Brett, I've always been passionate about wanting to give back. I love to, especially being kind of in the world of business development and coming alongside businesses and business owners and helping them solve their challenges. Nonprofits, giving back to them has always been something I love to do. So right now I'm actually working with 2 really cool nonprofits. The first one is Autism Power with Tony Iacampo is the founder of that organization. So we're actually working on kind of getting that off the ground. But it's basically a balance between a nonprofit and a social enterprise. So there's a lot of businesses actually in Columbus, up in the Delaware area, that are kind of getting involved. So they're going to, donate some space within the company to have children with autism come in and actually work like a real job. So the whole idea is to kind of equip individuals with autism to, live a normal life or as normal as they can. So it's really awesome. I'm so excited to be a part of it. We actually have Austin St. John, the original Red Power Ranger, on the board. Oh, wow. So yeah, there's a lot of attention coming towards the organization. So I just feel kind of honored, to help be a part of that and develop the organization with Tony. And then I also give back to an organization called In-Team. So J.D. Bergman was a wrestler at Ohio State, one of the best wrestlers in the world, incredible friend of mine too. But I'm on the advisory board with that organization. So they have a for-profit arm and a non-profit arm, but it's a faith-based organization that, is all about sharing positive messaging to help people overcome the depression, the anxiety that they're facing. The whole idea is, we're inundated with negative things in our world today. So JD wanted to create a positive platform that lifts people up rather than, kind of drags people down. So those are my two nonprofits that are, kind of taking some of my time. I'm obviously really passionate about them too. So I love to help them out the best way possible.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think that it also gives spotlight to a lot of nonprofits we don't even know exists.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're doing great work. So let's talk a little bit about your professional backgrounds to set the stage, and then we can get into Grow Like a Pro podcast. Jason, let's start with you in regards to where you started and how brings you here today.
Yeah. So I have like most people, they have a really kind of pivot points in life. So I actually graduated from college with a biology pre-med degree. So I was accepted early to medical school at LECOM, Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. And at that time in college, my senior year, I got involved in doing political consulting work. So different organizations were, they wanted to know a little bit more information on social issues. So I kind of did research with them, financial research, and kind of put all of that data in a fun, interactive way to display at different events and conferences and that kind of thing. And then it kind of opened up more into doing, I would create pitch decks for them. I started to do some business development for these organizations and political think tanks. So I was like, wow, man, I don't think that, medical school might be a good fit for me, because I loved what I was doing. I was like, wow, these people, to me it was, and it's kind of second nature to me. It's like I can see issues that I'm like, if I were in you guys' position, this is kind of what I would be doing or thinking about. So I respectfully declined, my offer to medical school and kind of stepped out into the dark, I guess. And, I pursued that, ended up doing a online MBA program part-time through MVNU, Mount Vernon Nazarene University here in the Columbus area. And halfway through the program, I was like, as an entrepreneur, as someone that's kind of in the trenches working with these organizations on a day-to-day basis, I just didn't feel like I was getting the information from that program that I really, wanted to know. So I ended up dropping out and teaching myself web development. So I ended up getting a job after that at a digital agency, a short stint there, then worked at Abercrombie & Fitch as one of their web developers. And then after that, worked as the digital director with a company called Story Builders out of Atlanta, Georgia. And that's where, I was exposed to working with some incredible people and brands. Had the opportunity to work with the John Maxwell Company, the Ziegler Corporation, Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, and so many other people, that would be like somewhat recognizable. So that was awesome. And then I left that company in January of 2018. And then connected with the guys at the Basement Doctor. I actually applied for a web developer position with them. And that's when Mike Stiers, the president of Jenesis Marketing Group, was like, man, I need to have a conversation with this guy, bring him in the office and see what he's all about, see if he's making up, his background. So thankfully, Mike and I hit it off pretty quick. And Jamie, the web and digital manager, I hit it off with him really well. So yeah, I'm the business growth strategist now with that company, and then, doing the Grow Like a Pro show with Adam. So I just feel really blessed to be in a position to add value, to other people who are trying to serve customers or, if it's a nonprofit, serve the people that they're trying to serve. So I love that.
Great. Adam.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
So I have as I mentioned previously, I was the IT manager of the Basement Doctor for about 8 years. But it's interesting because I graduated from Ohio State with a business degree in marketing. So I had big business background, and my father and other people in my family are huge in the business world, and I wanted to get into that world. But like I said, I also love technology. So after college, I went down and actually worked with my father a little bit because he had a big real estate company. So I just kind of learned some of the business, and it was fun just to work with him for a little bit and get my feet wet. And then I found the opportunity at the Basement Doctor, and their IT department was basically a storage closet at that time. And they were using cassette tapes for backups and certain things, and it wasn't a huge importance. And I just saw a need. I saw something that could really help the company. So I just dove in, learned everything, just running it on the ground as soon as I could, and developed that company over, like I said, 8 years, and brought all their servers up to the cloud, got everyone new computers, upgraded cell phones and VoIP phone systems and the internet and all this stuff, and really took the Basement Doctor to a different level as far as technology has gone. And as I started growing, it's getting to that point where I was kind of hitting a ceiling, there's only so much more I could do at this point. And I had a lot of ambitions and goals and dreams. And I really have a huge creative side because, as I mentioned, I did have a marketing degree, and alongside my gaming and technology love, I also write for one of the biggest websites in the world, IGN.com. So I'm an editor there, or a news writer there, and I've been working there. So that's something that has worked hand in hand with my charitable things with Extra Life and with Nationwide. So I wanted to transition into something where I was able to kind of combine both of my loves. So that's when Genesis happened, and Mike came and spoke to me and was like, hey, we're looking for somebody like a chief strategy officer, someone who's able to have a vision of where we want to go, what technology to use, what venues we need to go to, who's up on some of the new trends and stuff like that. And it kind of fell into place, and I knew that was the best decision for me because I was able to still use my love of technology and be able to help people and solve problems and be that kind of go-to person, but also get more into the creative side and hopefully merge, like I said, my two loves of technology and gaming and business and marketing and helping people. And as far as podcasting goes, kind of where we'll get into this a little bit, but I'd been podcasting since about 2012, 2013, and I started a gaming technology podcast and some other ones that I've done with some other people. So it's another thing that I love to do, and Genesis afforded me the opportunity to make that into something that could really help people and help businesses and help people trying to achieve their dreams and goals. So It's been a little bit of everything to get me to this point.
Yeah. Well, it's a good transition. So how did the process begin about talking about this podcast for Genesis?
Yeah, it really just started because, once again, I did have background in podcasting.
Right.
So one the podcast I do called The Gamer's Advocate, we've been doing it, and since we do have a studio and stuff, I was able to record there in certain times. So it was something that we talked about, and podcasting is a huge form of entertainment and media. I mean, there's so many different shows from, murder serials or different, business things or comedy stuff or politics and everything. And it's such a great way to get information out there. It's such a great way to learn stories, to hear people's successes and failures and learn something truly valuable. And, at Genesis, we really do try to position ourselves as authentic and transparent. And we really do want to grow alongside a business. But as you're familiar with, there's a million marketing agencies. There's a million advertising agencies. So we really are trying to say, well, how can we separate ourselves? I mean, obviously, by being good people and by really showing that we care and not just having some cookie cutter template and kicking people out the door. But we thought of this idea of Grow Like a Pro because it's such a great way, because when we're helping people, we want to get their message out. We're a marketing agency. What better way than to have a business owner or entrepreneur come and tell their story, tell their successes, tell their failures, learn about them, learn what they like to do, what their hobbies are outside of work, because it endears you to that person. It makes you have that other thing. Instead of just seeing some website and seeing some company, you're seeing people, you're seeing faces. And we think that that's hugely important because people's stories deserve to be told, and there's some incredible knowledge and things that you can learn from people that you would maybe have never run into in your normal everyday life.
So how did you two connect to do this as co-hosts for the podcast?
I think it was kind of, I don't know, a natural progression.
Yeah, well, it was because because
like Adam balances me out, and I think I kind of balance Adam out too.
Okay.
Because Adam's like more, I don't know, like you're always more energetic than me.
I'm like a 5-year-old basically. That's how I like to say it. 5-year-old
like when I
body.
listen to like some of our audio playback, I'm like, man, Adam is like so much more exciting than or at least I don't think anyone really likes the sound of their own voice, but I think Adam has a good balance to my voice and vice versa. So, but yeah, I was talking with Mike one day, and I was just like, we need to think about, I think, ways to differentiate ourselves and focus on different niches that, really bring people into the door. And exactly like Adam said, is not in a negative way, but disarm people from, hey, we just want to kind of take your money. That's not what we're about. We're really focused on building relationships with people. And then through those relationships, we can kind of figure out, oh, you're facing this issue. Everyone's facing issues on a daily basis. So why not be, as a community, offering our different services back and forth with each other? Because together, it's synergy. It's about, by working together, we can have a stronger output than if we all tried to go and do our own thing. So talking with Mike, he was like, well, we had kind of kicked around the idea of like this grow like a pro, a little while back. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm a huge fan of podcasts. I had heard that Adam, was doing the Gamer's Advocate. I'm like, yeah, let's do a podcast. So I think Adam and I kind of talked first, and we're like, okay.
We went out to lunch, actually. We went to Jade's, which I don't know if you're familiar with, in Reynoldsburg. Great Chinese restaurant, I must say.
We should have recorded that conversation.
We just had that conversation like we were doing a podcast, but because that was always our goal. We want it to be conversational. We want it to be friends talking. We want it to do that. So the first step is make sure we're compatible and friends.
Right, for sure.
And Jason's background, he's very out there. He's very outgoing. He talks to people. He's talked to a bunch of business owners and worked closely with some very successful people. So as great as our team was, I mean, we have so many different people from so many different avenues that bring so much value to our team. But when looking at the potential people for a co-host, Jason's kind of skills kind of aligned with what we were looking for and what we were trying to accomplish with Grow Like a Pro.
So from the first discussion, the lunch, to first episode published, how long of a process was that? How long? Many months, weeks?
Yeah, it was a few months. I mean,
well, actually, we did Ron's episode like right away. Adam did.
So our latest episode, which is Ron Greenbaum, we had a conversation with him, and it was actually before we upgraded some of our equipment and stuff. It was actually back in May.
Okay.
So we started this conversation back then. It was funny because I was editing the show and publishing, and I looked and I'm like, that was May? Oh my God! It didn't feel that long ago. But I mean, like you said, that's time flies with these kind of things.
Well, it was so we did that episode with Ron, and like Adam said, our equipment, was not where it needed to be. But I think Ron was coming into town,
knowing his schedule.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Catch him
when you can get it.
You bet.
Yeah, so we kind of like we threw the studio together and then kind of used that as our kickoff time. So we were like, let's use this as our momentum to kind of get going. So we used that time to kind of start to get more equipment and start to reach out to potential guests. So yeah, after Ron's episode, it was probably a few months where we scheduled our first guest to come in and then record from there. And then it's been really consistent so far.
Good. So, two hosts, how do you handle duties? What do you handle? What do you handle? Without stepping on each other's toes,
right.
And know where what each is supposed to do for each episode.
So we like to. I mean, obviously we're co-hosts and we do things, but I would say that I sometimes take. One of my goals is I do the editing and the publishing and making that, and Jason does some of the back end stuff, gets it ready to post to the website and do things, and then depending on who the guest is, we'll do like a questionnaire that we'll send to each other, like a Google Doc. And depending on who brought in the guest, they'll kind of put together something, and then we'll share it out with them and with us. And then while we're recording, we'll be live in that Google Doc, kind of adjusting and like changing questions and saying, hey, you do this one, or we're going to switch to this topic, or we're going to go depending on the conversation, because we believe, I mean, you sent us a great roadmap for this podcast too, but I think it's super, super important to have an outline and kind of a roadmap of where you're going, but not to be so beholden to it, because we like it to be fluid and be able to go down a side street or take a different tangent. So that's kind of how we started doing that, is we got a group of questions together and we've evolved it as we go, but we kind of jump on the fly, but just have a general idea of where we're going.
Yeah, because, I'm sure Brett, every guest is different.
Yeah, some people are comfortable with it.
Which does make it fun.
Yeah, it does.
Honestly, yeah, because you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. Like Adam and I, well, Adam's he's a much better speaker, I think, on the spot than I am. So just with my kind of personality, I like to have more of a framework or a template that I'm kind of working from. So for me, it's nice to have that in place. Like if we're working with a guest who's, kind of more similar to me, where, they might need to write more things out, or they might need to see the questions, that kind of thing in front of them. And then, other guests, they might not even need to see that any of the somewhat prepared questions at all.
Yeah, like Ron, we could have talked for probably 4 or 5 hours with no prompts. He could just go forever. But some people need a little more order, which is nothing wrong with that. But
exactly. Do you have any other people at Genesis helping you with the podcast, or input, listening, each episode kind of giving you critique a little bit, or with the process itself?
It's a huge team effort. I mean, we have our developers, our designers that created the logo and create things and all that stuff. We have our developers along with Jason who help get it ready to push on the website and to do all that stuff. And, Mike and other people help getting it out there with SEO and helping with all these things. And we actually... another idea that we're kind of working on too with our show is to do little mini podcasts with each of the employees to give them when you go to an About Us page, you can learn about the people that are actually working on your projects and stuff. Yeah. So once again, that's what's so awesome about Genesis is everyone kind of works together for that same goal and is very excited about everything. And, some people are a little more shy than others and are a little hesitant to being on the show. But besides that, everyone kind of does their part. But, the main help, I think, is getting the message out there, posting on necessary social networks, helping with the development and any type of logos or assets and artwork we need. And, listening to and giving us feedback of what they liked, what they didn't, maybe what else that we should look for, what other types of questions we could ask and stuff.
For sure.
With any project from a business, putting something out there, no matter what it is, what factors were discussed in measuring any ROI that's needed for this podcast to continue on with the project? Because it does take time from your schedule to do what you need to do at Genesis. And again, this is counted as your work, but at the same time, there may be other things you can allocate your time to doing.
Right.
What was there any discussion of ROI? And if so, what does that look like, and how is it ever changing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can answer first, Adam. So, one of the things that at least Mike and I have talked about is, the ROI for us is probably going to be a little bit further down the road. Just because, again, we're thinking of different ways that, people can see our authenticity and see how we're different, and, building a relationship with us is so important. So, I mean, in terms of the amount of listeners, the audience growth is one big indicator, kind of data point that we're looking at. We're starting to do paid advertising right now in terms of directing traffic to listen to the podcast. So kind of looking at those numbers as well. But again, the biggest thing now, since we're still relatively new, is, just to continue to get more guests on the platform. And then equip the guests with, what they need to share it with their own network once their episode goes live. So we don't have any very strict plan, I guess, in terms of the looking at our ROI. I'm sure once we start, we're actually growing pretty well right now, organically, and then also with the paid advertising. So it's just going to be kind of looking at that as we go along. So I wouldn't say it's something we're constantly thinking about right now, since we're still relatively new.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, as you kind of like to say, because we have big visions. Like I said, right now we set up our studio for audio, but we've started messing around with video. We're ordering some new tables and some new equipment to be able to upload our videos and have some Facebook live streaming. We really want to do some community events, live podcasting, go on the road, and we have a few trips planned to the West Coast and certain things to get other people around the country involved in all this stuff. So there's a lot of things that I think will help build and just make it a stronger product. But it's once again, we just released our 6th episode, right? So still relatively new with things. So you understand how these things go, but it's definitely something we're constantly looking at and making sure that it is bringing back the business and value that we put into it.
Yeah, and I would say, to kind of further go on to Adam's point, is, we're, at least for me, I'm looking at some of the purchases that we do as an investment, not just for the Grow Like a Pro platform, which I see as, kind of standalone to Genesis, but offering that to other people who come into other business owners who come into the office are like, wow, you guys have a studio? Would we be interested in renting that, to do some of our work too? So that's another avenue that we're thinking about too, is, looking at it from an investment in a number of the different internal companies that we have as well. So it's kind of, to answer your question, it's a little bit hard to measure the ROI, for just specifically for Grow Like a Pro, because it's kind of being used in a number of different ways.
Sure. Typically with an interview format, it's more of a networking opportunity. Mm-hmm. So how is your interview format allowing you to showcase Jenesis marketing expertise? How are you getting that accomplished?
So there's kind of a twofold way that we look at that. So we bring in the conversation. We don't want to be that selly, pitchy podcast. Correct. Because that turns people off instantly.
And you're not doing that for sure. I think there's an art form to this. And that's why I wanted to dig into how you're approaching doing that.
So I think it's very important to make sure that it stands alone from Jenesis, but not like by itself, or stands aside from it, but not alone. You know what I'm trying to say with that is that we don't want it to say, hey, this is Jenesis. Hey, this is Jenesis. Mm-hmm. But the way we do it is, once again, having that authenticity, getting people to like us. Because, podcasting I've been doing this for a while. And what I've really learned too is that the content in the podcast is important. It's very important that you're knowledgeable, you're factual, you say everything right. But what people come back for a lot are the people, are the actual individuals. They want to be a part of a community. They want to be a part of a family. So when people are in your network, and when they join you and they say, you know what, I like this guy, he's very relatable, I trust him, he's kind of aligns with my core values and stuff, that may force you, or not force you, but maybe incline you to look up what does this guy do, what's more of what he is involved in, and how can we see more of Adam or see more of Jason, or how can we get more involved in this? And as you said, with the networking and stuff, we have these guests on, but also what Jason and I do, we do our standalone podcast, or we do some other fun podcasts where we'll take a concept, like we did a Toys R Us episode a few weeks ago, because they've had the issue where they went bankrupt and they were going away, but now they might be coming back. So Jason and I had the idea, let's talk about Toys R Us, let's talk about the history, but then let's convert that, or take that conversation and take it to a more marketing and branding and rebranding yourself. So we're giving our tips and ideas of marketing and helping your business grow. And then, at the end and the beginning, we say we're sponsored by Jenesis, this is what we do, and throwing that in there. But it's kind of organically giving people knowledge and information, and not really trying to preach to them, but just say, hey, we live in this industry and we know these people and we know these ideas. And these are kind of the ways that I think can really help you grow. And there's ways to get in touch with us and kind of lead that into something more potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's was it Steve Martin who said, "Be so good that they can't ignore you." So I think that's Adam can do, his skill sets are things that I don't have, and vice versa. Everyone on the team offers something really, I guess, particular to what they're focused on and passionate about. That's why I love it. It's like, as people kind of get to know us, they're like, wow, how can I work with you? So it ends up almost being like we're never asking them. In some cases, it's just a natural progression that happens, that they're like, wow, you're not just this normal salesy kind of person that I'm so used to seeing, or, I get that contact form on my website all the time. Hey, we can help you, improve your SEO and all this kind of junk. And I'm like, that's not where we're coming from. By people kind of connecting with us and building a relationship with us, they're like, wow, okay, these guys are really different. They're actually, they're thinking of us as, we want to advocate for them. We actually will treat, your business like our own. We're not just here to kind of take money. We're here to actually help you grow, achieve success that you want to achieve.
Has the podcast been important in the blogging that you're doing, and vice versa?
I would say, yeah. I mean, Jason does a lot of the content creation and blogging, so I'd be curious to see what you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, not to give too much away, Brett, because that's a really good question. But I actually,
no one listens to this podcast. You're fine. You're good. You're good.
Well, Adam's writing, for IGN. I do. I'm a contributor for some of the largest publications on Medium.com. So I was just accepted into Hacker Noon, which is like the 4th largest publication on Medium, and I think it's and at least a couple thousand placement in terms of the Alexa rank. So it's
Great.
not quite IGN, Adam, but
Can't all be IGN. No,
but
competition going on here.
I know, right? Fight. Let's do it.
But yeah, I mean, so that's something that we're very much starting to focus on.
Good.
So I'm actually working on a blog post right now that's going to be in a publication on my favorite podcast of 2018. So I'm going to put in, our podcast in there as something that it's a personal project that we're working on. So excited about it. So it's kind of an idea that I'm putting value out there again at the end of the day. Adam's the same way. Every article that, we want to put out, it's a focus on it's delivering some kind of value or entertainment factor to the end reader, but then there is a call to action for people who want to know more. So yeah, you're gonna, if you follow our website, subscribe to the podcast, even follow Adam or me personally on some of the work that we're doing, you're probably going to see a lot more of the blogging aspect of what we're doing with Grow Like a Pro. So and it's probably going to be a important factor for some of the guests as well, just to share some of their platforms that they're doing as well.
Right. So your early stages of the podcast, obviously, but are you seeing some growth for search for the websites, time spent on the website? Are you seeing some analytic love from the podcast at this point in time?
Yeah, actually, Mike and I just talked about it yesterday. So it's a little bit difficult to track because, he just started doing some of the paid advertising to get traffic to the site. But yeah, I mean, looking at our, Adam chose SoundCloud for where we, host the audio episodes to go out. So we've been seeing I don't know, how many listeners in terms of growth would you say? It's we're up to, I don't know, at least 10 every 24 hours.
Okay.
10 new listeners every 24 hours. And it's, again, it depends on, because we haven't done too much paid. We just started the paid advertising, so it's going to take a little bit of time to see that return. But most of it, all the data now that we're looking at has been guests and their network, like social media. They're sharing it out. So yeah, some of the next upcoming episodes actually we're expecting to be pretty big because it's going to go out to a large network.
That's another brilliant thing about the Grow Like a Pro show podcast is that it's got that having these guests on, it's marketing itself. So it's you're having that whole extra arm of people where you don't have to do anything. I mean, it's something Ron always used to say is have people carry your water, have people help carry the load and stuff, and because people want to share their story and share that. So that's just another venue that helps get more eyes, or in this case, ears on it.
Yeah, and one thing that Adam always says too is, the rising tides raise all ships.
Exactly.
So that's where we're coming from too. It's sure, we'll help you, promote your platform, and I would hope that you would do the same with us too. So
it helps everybody.
Yeah, exactly. The synergistic
Win-win.
partnerships. Yeah, win-win in some cases.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's a good transition into marketing. How did you decide on your publishing schedule? I mean, you could do weekly, you could do bi-weekly, you could do monthly. How did you come to this decision?
So we I listened to a lot of podcasts, and we talked about this, and we were saying, well, will we have enough content? Will we be able to have enough guests? And we came to the idea where, we should do a weekly show. We should do it that, even if we can't get guests for a while, we have enough. There's enough topics in the world to talk about and make a show about it and speak for 45 minutes to an hour. So it's not like we're going to be, hurting for content. But another thing that I learned and that I really truly believe and appreciate as far as podcasting go is, and even in business and life in general, is consistency. And we've decided on the schedule of doing Thursday morning at 6 a.m. every Thursday, 6 a.m. No matter what happens, we're always going to have a show going live. Because once again, when people start listening to your show and listening to your podcast, there's an expectation. If it goes, I listen to some shows, there's especially some, in the gaming universe where if a show's an hour or too late, you'll have people saying, "Where's the show? What's going on? I don't know what to do with my life."
Isn't that amazing?
It is. Because it's true. Because it's part of your routine.
Yeah.
And and I like the 6 a.m. because it's something where you can wake up, and a lot of people listen to podcasting in the car. So they'll, on their way to work every Thursday, they'll know, I have a new episode to listen to. So they have that because it's not, oh, when is this going live? Oh, there's another episode. Oh, I forgot. It becomes part of a routine that every week, Grow Like a Pro, 6 a.m. On Thursday when I'm driving to work, I know I'll be able to hang out with Adam and Jason for an hour and do that stuff. So that's something that I really, we went back and forth with how we wanted to do it, but something that I really preached was consistency, never missing an episode and making sure it goes live at the same time, and just doing that all the time and making it like a comfort, like people know it's going to be there for them.
Yeah, you had a little bit of that training in writing blogs, correct?
Yeah, of course, definitely.
When you're writing for one of the largest
in
the universe, they expect content from you at X amount of time.
Yeah. You need to get content going, or what's the point? I mean, it's when things are missing, then views drop, subscribers drop, things drop, and it's you gotta keep it going. You gotta keep that train rolling, as I say.
What are you offering your guests to help them share your podcast in the episodes?
$500.
You're the folks doing that. Yeah, okay.
No, we obviously we share the links. We always love to take a picture at the end, and we are going to put it on our wall, like part of our studio. We're going to have a wall of guests and things. We had this idea of doing things, but having just to share, just letting people know that, hey, we're going to be posting it at this time. We're going to start posting it. It'd be nice to share, tagging each other back and forth, giving people the knowledge of the right social networks to share the right things to make sure people aren't. We actually had an issue with a company last week, a different company, where they were tagging the wrong company in all their social posts. Yeah. So I mean, communication I think is one of the biggest gifts you can give somebody, in my opinion, because if you're not sharing the right message, or you're screaming it at a wall over there when people are looking at that wall, it doesn't do anybody any good. So, just making sure we give people the tools. We know when it's going live. We know when they can share it, what they can talk about. What we like to ask the guests too, what do you want us to highlight? Is there anything that you want us to really, in our posts and even in our conversations that you really are passionate about and really like to do? So it's kind of a group effort, making sure that we're hitting all the targets from both parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we before every recording, we love to just kind of sit there and talk with the guest. So I think Adam's the same way too. I don't want to speak for you, Adam, but I'm a huge experiential person. So like creating an experience for someone is very important. So like the first moment that they kind of walk up to the door is like that has to begin with a good experience. So giving them a good tour of the building and the grounds, and then the studio, making sure they get water, coffee, anything that they need to make them feel more comfortable. Because the last thing we want is the guests to feel a little anxiety or nervousness. Sure. But everyone has that to a certain extent. But try to make them feel as comfortable as possible. And again, like you said, Brett, it's we want to have a conversation style. And that's what, it's a conversation with friends, and that's the best, because that's so authentic. People can tell when you're not, you're kind of faking. Oh, yeah. So having that experience is so important. And then, after that, we usually talk for a good amount of time too, because I don't know about you, Brett, or I know Adam kind of gets the same way, at least for the shows that we've done. You get so pumped up.
You do. I mean, it's like an icebreaker. It really is.
Shut the recorder off and it's like, see you later. Sure. Yeah, it doesn't happen. No, you spend another half hour just kind of defragging after that, and you kind of go, why aren't we recording this too?
I know, right?
It always happens.
We had that conversation, I think, a few weeks ago, where it's like, you got to just, I started learning this too, is when you end the show, don't actually hit end. Keep it going. Or before you record, just record the testing of the levels.
The preamble.
The preamble, because sometimes the best things come from those moments when you're not actually recording, and you're like, man, I wish I had that.
I know.
We actually started, we'll release this probably maybe for our year anniversary or something, but we started compiling like a blooper reel.
Aren't those fun?
Yeah, they're the best. So I have this whole folder of all of Jason and I's things where we're just like, what did you just say? What is happening? Oh, it's great.
Like Adam, I don't want to give too much away, but Adam recorded me doing something really stupid, last week?
Yeah, something like the Batman theme song.
Oh yeah. He was like playing it on looping, and I'm like, oh, this is so embarrassing.
It's amazing. So microphones are like lubricants.
Oh my god!
And just see how much you can get away with, and just having fun, which is good though, because it can be intoxicating as well.
It is.
But you want to be a part of it.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. You want to be a part of the party. You want to be a part of the, you want to be our friends, which that's what we like to say. We want to be that. We want to be your friends. We want to be part of your everyday and your network and things.
Yeah, for sure.
Social media strategy. What did you decide upon for the podcast to get the word out?
So I know Jason, and he can go into this a little more. We talked about we started doing some paid advertising, and we started doing things. And one of the biggest issues that we had was coming up with a name, because we wanted all the same name for all of our networks. And we went back and forth with certain things. And we came up with, Grow Like a Pro Show is one thing that we really like to do. But on Twitter, the W doesn't fit, or the last O doesn't fit. We're one character short from Grow Like a Pro.
Course.
So that kind of screws everything up. So that's one of the most challenging things, especially with trying to get those handles, because it's easier to find. But it's just trying to make sure you have a consistent message across all platforms. You're not leaving one platform behind, because there may be some people that really focus on those platforms. So you want to make sure all the cross-posting, cross-promotion is in place. Once again, getting that post live right as the episode goes, so people know it's ready to go. If there's an issue, communicating issues, because when you set an expectation and you don't hit it, that's when huge problems happen. I mean, that's if you say, hey, we're having some technical issues or something happened, we're not going to be able to release our episode till like noon on Thursday, or maybe we can't do it till Friday or something. It's a lot better than someone opening up their phone and have this whole idea of, oh man, I got my long commute. At least we have Grow Like a Pro in this podcast. Where is it? What's going on? So I think communication, once again, transparency, authenticity is hugely important.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of like when it goes live, like when an episode goes live, I usually share a little bit of information, tag Adam in it from my personal platforms. And then I will, it's usually like, one of our social media team members that handle scheduling a post from the Jenesis social media accounts. So, and then they'll tag us in that as well. So, we kind of try to hit it at a number of different angles. And usually by that point, the guest is tagged. They're usually sharing it with their own network. So it depends on the guest, because every guest is going to be different in terms of their network. So we're getting to the point where we're going to be asking them, hey, what's the best strategy or way that you want to be tagged, or to share this out with your own network as well. We're talking about equipping people possibly with sending it to their email lists, because that's very important. An email list, having an email list today is huge in terms of getting building an audience, a tribe. So, talking about that, but again, we want it to be authentic to that guest. We don't want to have that kind of cookie cutter approach. So, Adam has been really good at kind of balancing me out in that way. Sure. And that's another really good benefit for having two co-hosts, two hosts, is that, Adam is a good kind of a lens. Like if I'm thinking of an idea, I'll talk to him and he's like, nah, maybe we should do this. And, vice versa. We kind of have that rapport back and forth. So
soundboards going back and forth and shoot an idea, see what sticks. It's it's nice to have someone else hear your idea and perfect it or do those kind of things. It's always helpful.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier artwork is done by somebody in-house.
Correct.
How did that come about? Did the person volunteer? You say, hey, we got to have somebody do artwork. Go ahead and do this, please, for us. I'm looking at this as don't allow the artwork to be a stumbling block.
Right.
It's important, but at the same time, there's got to be somebody on staff at a business that would be willing to put the artwork together for you.
Sure.
So how was that process? Was it point a finger? Would you do this for us?
We have people on our team that have incredible eyes for design and for artwork and have all that stuff. So it's kind of a no-brainer. When we started this, that was part of the conversation was, are you guys okay with designing up some logos and ideas and artwork and things? So it was a pretty easy conversation. I mean, that's what's the benefit of working at a company like Jenesis is we got, you have those people that if someone is starting their podcast on their own, needs to maybe outsource or look for other things, but it's nice to be able to have a lot of these things in our office. Yeah. And another thing that we really tried to stress is we wanted to have a logo or a type of thing where people can identify with that, fits well on a mug or on a T-shirt or on a hat. Because when people are out in the community and they see that logo, it should be a feeling. I mean, that's what we talked about with our Toys R Us ad, and even with Ron Greenbaum with the Basement Doctor. When you see Ron's face, or when you see Toys R Us, or when you see these things, you have an intrinsic feeling. a actual reaction to what you're seeing. There's memories that come up, or your history with the brand, or good or bad feelings with certain things.
It can go either way.
Exactly.
For sure.
So that's what we tried to really do is, we want to obviously say that we're a podcast and we're a radio thing, but also have a cool kind of logo that's catchy and does stuff like that, and also make it we don't sound like a landscaping company with Grow Like a Pro. So
right.
Yes, that's right.
Sure.
Well, in terms of like getting it, like the design of the current logo, I know that like I think you and I, Adam, were just sketching out different ideas, and then we gave it to the designer, and then she kind of worked up a number of different concepts, and then I think from there Adam gave a few other like I guess points to revise it. And then we've settled on the final logo. So it wasn't too long.
No, because like I said, another thing I do like, my like stylistic choice is very minimalist. I like having that nothing too complicated or flashy or things, just something that gets the message across. And we kind of have the idea of with the microphone and kind of the growing the symbol too. So it makes sense. It's something that it's not too in your face. It's not too crazy, but you get it when you look at it.
Well, and you're dealing with a thumbnail artwork.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't put a ton of stuff in there.
You can't have all this text or these crazy
has to look pretty clean in all the different podcast players.
Definitely.
Namely iTunes and Apple Podcasts.
Of course.
So you don't want to stick too much into that. Knowing, okay, it's got to be applicable where most people are going to see this as well.
Definitely.
A lot of different hosting platforms available. I know I'm sure you did the research. Why did you choose SoundCloud to go with?
So we went back and forth. It was actually interesting when I started doing podcasting in 2012, I think it was. I used this platform called Blog Talk Radio. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But
Still exists.
Yeah, it does.
Under a bigger umbrella company.
But it's a really interesting company because they really try to position themselves as having those live radio stations where you can have people call in and do stuff. So when I started doing that, it was nice to be able to do this. But I don't know. It seemed like there were a few limitations and things that I didn't really give us quite what we wanted. And one of my friends who actually designed some of my theme songs for our other podcasts, he's used SoundCloud a lot, and I mean it's a very popular name and it's an easy way that integrates well with all the other platforms and things, and doesn't really give me too much pushback and things, and it was just an easy way to host and get things rolling and kind of get things. So it wasn't too crazy of a conversation, just something that I've been using for a while and has been just kind of a point of comfort because like I said, I'd been working on it since we switched from Blog Talk in maybe 2013 or something. So when we started to grow like a pro, it was just an easy switch.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the ones I was used to working with was Libsyn.
Yeah, that's another good one.
That was one that we kind of went back and forth, but I relied on Adam's experience just because I was like, hey, I've never done this myself. I've worked with putting the content out there from a Libsyn account, but and that's what having the team again kind of have a really good flow to get the content out there was really important. So, yeah, SoundCloud has been awesome so far.
Yeah, and I think a lot of podcasters use that as a stumbling block. Which one should I go with? Which one should I go with? Well, first of all, you can switch at any time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's easy to transfer over. Most of them make it easy to go from. For example, you start on Podbean and you don't like Podbean, you'd rather go to a Spreaker or go to a Blueberry. They work with you. As long as you're doing a bigger brand name of a hosting platform, just do a little research.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to the nuts and bolts for the team members. What do you like? Do you like the look of the embed player, if nothing else?
Right.
There are a lot of variables there. They're all about the same price point, quite frankly. And answering all those questions ahead of time of how many times you're going to publish per month, how big are the files and such, they'll help you make a phone call.
Exactly.
Or the help bubble comes up, ask the questions.
What do you need?
Most of them play well together.
Yeah.
And again, the price points are about the same when it comes down to it if you are paying for a hosting platform.
And I mean, especially what's nice with SoundCloud, I mean, it's a huge company, very reputable, so their servers aren't going to go down. You're not going to have any issues with that. And also, when it comes down to it, as long as it's getting it on iTunes and Google Play, that's a huge thing too. I mean, that's where most people are listening to it anyway. I mean, like I said, some of these other hosting services, people do go there, so I'm not discounting that or anything, but the majority of listeners obviously come from people using iPhone or their Google phones.
Right.
Yeah, and Brett, you brought up a really important point that some people can kind of use that as a stumbling block. No matter what it is, whether you're talking about marketing or even science or, I was talking with a business owner today about a new project that they're thinking about doing. And they're like, wow, these data analytics are just awesome from this tool. And I'm like, but will that help your customer?
Right.
So you always got to focus on the end user, the people you're trying to serve at the end of the day. Because you got to have that as your priority. You can't get kind of, caught up in, hey, does this tool, is this tool cooler? Does it have, the more gadgets and that kind of thing? It's like,
watch out for the rabbit hole.
Exactly. Yeah. Like what is the best thing that's going to be, the best fit for the team and then deliver value to the user?
And we kind of talked a little bit about that too with the analytics for the podcast itself. You can rattle off a few numbers and such that SoundCloud tells you what's going on or any platform, but there is a rabbit hole there that you got to watch not going down.
Yeah.
Let your podcast develop over time.
Yeah.
Worry about the content more than about the numbers. The numbers will take care of themselves.
Yeah, you get too caught up in that. It's dangerous.
It is. That's exactly the way to put it. It's dangerous because it's total distraction.
Yeah, you focus on the wrong things. Your content will suffer. It'll get in your head. Like you got to keep going and just believe in yourself and know that what you're doing matters and you're taking the right steps. It's very important.
Your recording space, what's it look like? What are you doing? I know you talked about changing it up and making it even better in your eyes, whatever that is. I mean, there's no definition to that other than what you want it to be. But what space are you using and what's incorporated in it? What are you doing with it?
So right now we took over a room that used to be kind of our photo editing room where we had some setups where they would take product shots for the Basement Doctor and things like that. And then we converted it to kind of the studio. We repainted the walls. We kind of fixed some of the outlets and all this stuff and added internet. And then we put up some soundproofing equipment. We're not quite there yet because we have a big conference room table that's a little too unwieldy that we have to keep sideways, so it's not great for video. So we're in the process, like I said, of ordering new tables. We already bought some GoPros and some other equipment and video equipment to start filming and getting things up there and kind of do that. But we got the basic stuff. I mean, we got a huge deal from B&H and we got a whole bunch of nice mics and soundboards and all this stuff. So we have a lot of the really, really high-end equipment and stuff. We're just trying to perfect and get our studio to the next level, like I said, which I think the next step is video, because we're getting audio at a pretty good place, but a lot of money and value can be had with a video. So
it's another touch point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why not take advantage of it when you have a studio that you do want to put on video?
Exactly.
And it's comfortable and everybody looks good.
Yeah.
And it works for the viewer, the end user.
Of course. Right.
Why not do it?
Why not? Exactly. Right. That's the thing. Why not?
Yeah. The editing and mixing of the audio, again, I keep mentioning stumbling blocks, but it's all these little pieces that have to come together. How do you get that done? Once you record, it's done. What's the process of editing, mixing, and getting it uploaded and publishing?
So I handle a lot of the editing and mixing, and I do it through GarageBand.
Okay.
Yeah, just do it's a nice, easy, simple way to kind of have nice control over it and things. And I've started messing around with Premiere Pro and some other things once we get video rolling for certain editing and stuff like that. But GarageBand has been pretty much my bread and butter of, it's just very easy to clip things out, trim things, kind of have multiple tracks, put in the audio, put in the video, certain transitions and stuff. So, I take that. And what we do, so as Jason mentioned earlier, when we started that whole process from May till when our first episode was released, in September maybe or something?
I think
I think September, we had a backlog of about 8 shows or something. So we obviously, when we went them live, some of these people were talking about timely things, or like even Ron in his old episode, or his episode was like, I'm doing all this stuff in June, and we released it last week. So what Jason and I do is the week of whatever show we're doing, we'll come in and we'll just have a little banter back and forth for an intro and an outro, just kind of saying, hey, this episode was recorded before. What else is going on? How are you doing? Certain things, just like a little 2-3 minute thing to say, hey, this is what's happening. So part of that goes into the editing too, just making sure people understand, like when they're listening and they hear someone talking about, oh, next week is Thanksgiving, and they're like, what? No, it's not. That's what are you talking about? So it's, once again, it's something that we really value and try to just make sure people understand what's going on.
And it's usually Adam making fun of me, so
it's so easy, man.
You're ready for it. So future plans for the podcast. Any changes, tweaks you're thinking about?
I'm looking for a new co-host. So.
Oh, well, okay.
I love you, Jason.
we just laid it out there in the world.
Wow, that's news to me. Wow.
Send resumes to hello at.
Yes. That's fantastic.
Well, do you also see this podcast as a template for other marketing groups?
I would say yes. I mean, I think it's...
Without stealing your ideas, of
course,
not at all. But at the same time, it's getting accomplished what you want to get accomplished.
And here's what I think is so valuable for other marketing firms and other businesses that kind of take this kind of process that Jason and I have started doing and are trying to perfect and things is when you're trying to meet people and you're trying to network people and you try to bring people into your office, it's different when them walking in and going into a conference room and starting to talk business. The way we do it is you come in and you hang out and you have a conversation with friends and you do this. So then when you have the meeting, you already know each other. You already have background. You have some history. So I think it's a very valuable tool to really help people get into your business and get into your network and know who you are before they decide if they want to actually do business with you.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things, too, for me that I kind of pick up on when we're interviewing a guest is I identify their pain points in, hearing their story with their platform, whatever it is that they're kind of talking about. And then, in a follow-up meeting afterwards, I can usually speak from those pain points. Hey, you mentioned this. Is, there any ways that we could come alongside you and help you solve that issue in the best way possible? So, yeah, I mean, it's very important conversation pieces, I think, through the interview.
Okay. Yeah. And then as far as future plans, I know we've talked about this a lot, but once again, having it a little like your setup is getting more video, getting more things like that, and getting. I think that's really the next big step. And as I mentioned previously, we want to do community events. We want to do live shows at places. We want to travel and do on the road casts and do more vlogging and things, and just make it more of we're a whole network of us doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yep.
So what advice would you give a business owner who's looking to get into podcasting? Obviously, you're eating your own dog food here. So you would advocate, podcast is good for your business. We do it, see how easy it is to do and such. But there are a lot of moving parts to this.
Of course.
And now that we've all been a part of it, you kind of go, it's all done. But somebody looking at this, we've talked about a lot of different things here.
Right.
So key people that should be involved. And again, advice to a business that would be looking at this. What would you say to them?
So I would say if you have that idea, I think it's important to take a look at your team, to take a look at who you have there, who would be a good co-host. Do you have the tools necessary to be able to edit, to be able to do this? And if you don't, who can you get? What partners do you work with that you think can fill that slack and make this happen? But, one of the biggest things and it's the biggest advice that my dad always used to say to me all the time is, and it's a famous tagline of a company, but just do it. Mm-hmm. Like you learn while you do it. The biggest problem, this is something that I actually learned being an IT manager for 8 years. The biggest roadblock for people is the unknown, is the idea that I don't know this, I can't do it. This is too complicated, but just Google it. Like I've learned so much of my skills from just Googling how to do this. Mm-hmm. They've made so many tools, especially nowadays. It was a lot harder maybe 10 years ago or something, but so many people are doing podcasts and so many people have ideas, and there's a lot of easy ways to start. You can go on B&H right now and buy a podcasting starter kit for a few $100, maybe less, or depending on how sales and deals are going. And you just have to get and just start talking. You could even start doing it on your iPhone. You just see how it goes. Like, if anybody's listening to this, just take one of your friends at your office, sit in a conference room and talk about something for an hour and see how easy it is. You're just hanging out.
Give it a trial and hit delete when you're done if you don't ever want to keep it. But I would suggest never delete it because you never know when you might want to pull back on. But this was our beginning 10 years ago.
It's fun. That's a great thing to do is do that. And I think the biggest, like I said, that unknown, I think, is the biggest roadblock of people that you just can't be afraid. All these people, these entrepreneurs, especially that we interview, and these people, they found this level of success because they just did it. They weren't afraid. If you fail, you fail and you move on. But like, if you fail at the podcast, what's going to happen? Nothing. It's like, there's not a lot of risk in it, but there's a lot of reward and a lot of fun to be had. And I don't think you should, if you are kind of overwhelmed, you should not be afraid to reach out to you or to us or to friends or people in your network, because like I said, if people are doing this right, they want to help you. They want to help because in helping you, it's helping them. It's helping everybody grow. And it's a very valuable thing that is really not too crazy if you have certain things and certain ideas. But it's, I think the biggest roadblock is just that idea of, I don't know, I've never done it before, but you know what? People say that a lot before they do something, and then Mozart happens.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and to go on Adam's points too, is I think one of the biggest things that you can see from both of us is that we're very humble, and we're very open and wanting to learn from other people. I know Adam loves to learn new things. I love to learn new things. So I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give is, find a podcast that you really like and study what they're doing.
Definitely.
And kind of model that after, your own platform. Figure out what's working, what's not working. Because, Adam doesn't have a degree in gaming. He doesn't have a degree in writing. Not that I'm aware of.
No, marketing.
I don't have a degree.
But put enough hours in, you're a professional,
exactly.
right?
That's
like,
how it is.
Like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. And I've worked with a few billionaires, and then I've worked with people that are solopreneurs. And one of the most common things I've noticed is if they don't know how to do something, they find a mentor that is in a position that they want to be in, and they learn and kind of follow along on that path. So that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I would say is, do that.
Where can they find your podcast?
They can find it on iTunes. They can find it on Google Play Store, on Stitcher, on all these things. I mean, those are kind of the main place. Obviously, SoundCloud, because that's where it's being hosted. So those are kind of the main ones. But we try to get it, to as many people as you want, as well as the GenesisMarketingGroup.com webpage. We have a whole section built out for podcasting where you can learn more about the guests. You can see pictures. You can see show notes. You can see other things about if you want to get involved. If you love the guests and you want to get involved with them, you think they may be a good fit for you, or you want to learn from them. We have a lot of information there as well.
Right. And I would suggest go to the .com first.
Yeah.
That's the best way to learn more about what you guys beyond listening to this full episode, but at the same time you get to see faces to names and also previous guests. A little easier to navigate because it's on your big screen to see what's going on.
Definitely.
So thank you for being a guest on this podcast. I appreciate it. The focus is to really demystify a lot of what a business can do with podcasting, and your perspective and your analysis of everything has been insightful and worth $1 million. So, and hopefully we can help everybody grow like a pro.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
That's the dream, right?
That's right.